Hey y'all. Okay, perfect. Just making sure everyone on YouTube is good to go. On Instagram AirbnbMoney. Okay, perfect. Hi. Thank you for dropping in. Okay, so welcome to the Airbnb Q&A. My name is Precious Price. For those of you that are not familiar, thank you for joining. Tonight we are talking about Airbnb and a bit about the tiny houses and just answering some of the questions that you have related to my journey, that experience, and all of that. So if you would like to ask questions directly or you want me to answer your question, please drop it using the question icon on Instagram Live. If you are on YouTube, I'm watching as well. I'm watching the comments. So feel free to drop them there if you want, or you can watch live with us on Instagram too, whichever you prefer. But I wanted to make sure that I gave you both the option. So with asking those questions, use the question box. I do have all of the questions that everyone asked prior to this session going live. So prior to this, I did put up a question box on Instagram for everyone to just kind of drop in and ask their questions so that we can capture them all in one place. Again, what I'll be doing today is answering those questions. But first, before I do any of that, I want to make sure that everyone who's on here, you're thoroughly aware of what I do in my experience with Airbnb. I am currently based in Atlanta, Georgia. That is where I am based. That is where all of my properties are located. I have 3 properties currently. 2 of them are houses. 1 of them is a tiny house. That is what I currently have, right? The tiny house you may know about from my Going Tiny series on YouTube. It is a docuseries that I have that's 3 episodes that completely takes you through how I started designing, how we started building, and then how we went back and we listed the Airbnb, and now it is doing the numbers that it's doing on Airbnb being listed, which I will show and tell y'all about a little bit later. But that's a little bit about my experience with Airbnb. I have been in this game for a little over 2 years now. I started out Airbnb in my apartment. I then went and purchased a house. I acquired another house through a rental arbitrage method. And that is when I started to build the tiny house. And I'm currently in the process of securing a few units via an apartment as well, which I'm really excited about. This is my first time dropping that information. So I'm excited about that and getting back into that space. So again, as you do have questions, drop them in, but make sure you send this out to at least 3 to 5 people, right? Send this to at least 3 to 5 of your friends, because what we're talking about today is all money and how you can get in on this. So I want to make sure that y'all got it. You got the information, which I'm really excited about. And like I said, this is some good information because we are nearing 100,000 views on the Going Tiny docuseries, which I'm super excited about. 100,000 views, nearing 100,000 views on YouTube. So this is some information that is seeming like a lot of people want to know, they want to hear. So send it out to some people. Send it out to all your closest friends, all of that, because we're talking money today. So let me navigate to these questions. And as I'm doing that, for those of you that are currently watching with me live, drop into the question box some of the questions that you have, and we can get those answered too. But yes, really excited about this. So one of the main questions that I've been getting, specifically related to Airbnb, is how, number one, do I need to buy a house to get started? Do I need to purchase a home to get started with this? Because right now, for those of you who you may or may not know, right, some of you may be interested in buying a house right now. You may be thinking, okay, I want to get started and get into this market. The market right now is interesting. And I just want to preface all of that by saying that I am no real estate agent. I am just in real estate via Airbnb and short-term rentals. That is what I do, though I am well-versed, and I like to be well-versed on the industry that I'm playing in. But if you are in the market of purchasing a home right now, it is ridiculous. It's not a buyer's market at all. If you're selling, you are in an absolute amazing market, because there are a ton of people looking for homes, looking for investments. However, if you are a buyer, unless you come in hard money cash and you're willing to pay above market price, it's crazy right now. It's absolutely crazy. So that's why I say, if people say that, oh, I need to purchase a home to get started, no, you do not necessarily. That is not necessarily the case at all. What you can do is something that's called rental arbitrage. For those of you that are not familiar, that you're wanting to get in this and you say you don't have the money to get started purchasing a home, or you just don't want to go through the process of buying a home because you don't want that large sum of a loan, right? Look up the term, write down the term rental arbitrage. Rental arbitrage is what it's called when you go and you actually do a long-term rental from someone else. So let's say I own a home and you come to me and you say, I want to rent your home on a 12 to 18 month basis. Let's say a 12 to 18 month basis, you want to rent my home. So I give you, being that you are a long-term tenant, I am going to offer you my home at what the market rate for rent is. And the market rate for rent, I can't necessarily charge too much above that. Like a regular long-term tenant isn't going to want to pay $5,000, $6,000. That's what you can make on Airbnb though. But if you are looking at the market rate, you're not going to be able to charge more than, let's say you're in the city of Atlanta, $2,000, maybe. So that's the beauty of this rental arbitrage method. So like I said, I am the owner of a house. You come to me and you say you want to rent my house long term. I am now offering you a rental rate of, let's say, $1,200, maybe $1,250, $1,300, whatever it is. For numbers' sake, money's sake, let's just say $1,000. I say I'm offering my house for rent, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, $1,000 to you. Now you go and you say, all right, now my name is on this lease. I am now leasing your home. Now I want to put this home on Airbnb. You could tell me, you cannot tell me. It depends on how my contract looks. How does my contract as a landlord looks, right? If it doesn't mention it, maybe you want to give them a heads up. That's completely up to your discretion. However, you then say, since you've now rented this on a long-term basis with me, you want to then go and rent it on a short-term basis on Airbnb. You want to list the space there. That is the rental arbitrage method. That is pretty much you going to rent some space, whether it is a house or whatever, on a long-term basis, and you turn it around and you are now flipping it, right? You're flipping it and putting it on Airbnb, and now you have the potential to make, let's say if you're charging, I don't know how much you're charging, but let's say you're charging at least $100 a night. So now at this point, 30 days, let's say that you get, I don't know, a 50% occupancy rate. At this point, that is at least $1,500 extra that you are getting, yet you're only paying me $1,000 for what the rent is. So now you are taking off the top of that. That is what the rental arbitrage method is. So a lot of people ask me that, and that is how you can, or that is another option that some people don't necessarily, I wouldn't say know about, but honestly, yes, know about. That some people just don't know about in this space. You do not have to purchase a home outright to get started within this. Okay, let me go to this story with the questions because that was the first one that I remembered. But I want to make sure I answer them thoroughly as well. Okay, perfect. Okay. And I see a few coming through on Instagram. So I'll make sure that I answer those as well. All right, so I see a question that's saying, how much do you need to get started? So within my Airbnb Money ebook, I pretty much break down the kind of budget that you can look at, whether you are looking at renting an apartment versus a house, whether you are looking at renting the whole space versus room by room. I break that down within the ebook. So that's where you can find a really detailed answer to that question. But pretty much to get started, let's say that you are wanting to get started renting, like, for right now, I'm going to say an apartment because a lot of people have been asking about apartments lately. You want to get started renting an apartment on Airbnb. How much do you need to get started? Well, let's think about this. Number one, they're going to charge you the rent. You're likely going to be charged the rent, and you're going to be charged a security deposit. Off top, you already know that that is an initial cost that you have. Rent and security deposit. For, plus utilities, let's say that it's $1,500 you're paying in rent plus utilities, and then the security deposit, let's say it's also $1,500 just to match it. At this point, you are at a $3,000 investment just to move in. This is before you furnish the space, right? This is before you've hired any cleaners. This is before you brought in the special snacks to make sure that you are greeting your guests properly. This is before all of that. So you are already at a $3,000 investment. You are now at a $3,000 investment. So now that you're at that $3,000 investment, you are in the property, right? Let's just say that is what it takes to get you inside the property. This is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. We're just going to make it pretty simple. 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom. At that point, you have a couple of options, right? But your budget is going to range. At that point, it can range anywhere between $500 to, let's say, $3,000+ depending on how luxurious you want the unit. When you ask about numbers in terms of how much it's going to cost, the answer is always going to be it depends. It depends on whether you are renting versus owning. It depends on whether you are trying to go a more luxurious route and charge more because you are presenting yourself as a luxury unit, or it could be that you are just presenting yourself as a standard unit. So then at that point, you are not looking for more expensive items. You want to, decrease your overhead costs. So number one, the main answer is you can find a detailed answer within my ebook. But to speak a little more to that, it is going to depend a lot on, number one, whether or not you are trying to rent versus own. And number two, whether you want to be a standard unit, whether you want to be an extra luxury unit. There are even some economy units on Airbnb. A lot of people tend to think that you have to put these luxurious. A lot of people tend to think, sorry y'all, someone was calling me. A lot of people tend to think that you have to put these luxurious units on Airbnb, and you do not. There are markets for literally everything. So let's say that you want to get into more of you only have an extra room in your house to rent. So at that point you say, you know what, I am going to get more into the economy, right? The economy audience, those people who may be traveling solo. So they're looking to save a little money. So you might charge a little cheaper, but at that point you get more turnover from a ton of guests that you have because it's just one person maybe in one room. But you have to figure out which angle you want to take it. How do you want to get into the market? Because it's not always luxury. And a lot of the times most people don't have luxury to start out. And if you try to start out luxury when you don't have it, you're going to end up in the hole. You're eventually going to get yourself out, but you are definitely going to end up in the hole because luxury costs a lot of money. But there are options for you to furnish a unit on a budget. Most of my units, I would say, they range in the standard to kind of mid-luxury range. And I'm hesitant to say luxury, right? But it's standard and it's cozy and it's homey. That's what it is. But I wouldn't necessarily say that there are extremely expensive plasma TVs in every single room. No. It's standard, right? So at that point, I know my market and I'm able to charge at that market rate. So, as a starter, there's a question here I see that says, as a starter, would you rent a 2-bedroom and use one as your own room when you're not booked? Personally, I have to be honest, I would not do that, but I'll only say that as a woman. I would not do a personal room just because there's a ton going on and I already don't like a ton of people in my house. So I would not rent like a personal room, but that's not to say that there's not a market there. There's certainly a market there. I have a friend who did something similar out in Houston where it wasn't even a bedroom that he was renting. He was renting an air mattress in his living room. An air mattress in his living room, making absolute bank, renting an air mattress in his living room. So at that point, it's like I realized, okay, there's a market for anything out here. But yeah, there is the option to do that on Airbnb especially. But me personally, I would not do that just because I like my own space. I like to be by myself. Okay. So let's find the other questions. There are more than a couple on here. Okay. And I see the ones here as well. So someone on Instagram asked, what are the best cities to do Airbnb? When you're thinking of traffic, in terms of like the easiest, the most general route that everyone thinks about, then you're going to look at the cities that are more popular, right? Cities like Chicago, cities like Atlanta, cities like Vegas, LA. You're going to look at those cities because people are traveling to those cities. But what I will say is that a lot of people don't realize that Airbnb is not just travelers. There are people who search on Airbnb for their work housing. Maybe they're in the city for a week, a couple of days, maybe the month, and they're looking for housing, short-term housing, they are looking on there too. Or even then, there are just families who want to have a small event, maybe a small family get together and do that in the city and more so have like a staycation. There's a market for literally everything. So I would say at that point, when I say best cities, yes, cities that are going to get you more traffic are absolutely going to be amazing. But I've certainly seen success. I have seen success in cities that are 45 to an hour plus away from the airport, hour away from the airport, or hour away from the city. Just because that may be where the hub of a particular, factory is, or where the hub of a particular office for a large organization is. That's why you need to do the research on your own city. Because again, it's not just travelers that are using this space. So you have a lot of options when getting into this in regards to, okay, how much can I make? You can make as much as you want to make, and as much as your house can bear, your house and your space can bear. So I think that's a really big, important piece of it. And honestly, the piece that I like the most is because even if I wanted to go out to, say, Mobile, Alabama, and do a Airbnb, there are sites likely in Mobile, Alabama. So at that point, people may be looking for, I need somewhere to stay for my family vacation, for us to visit this museum or XYZ. Then at that point, I'm catering to that market. I make sure that my unit is the best in what they need, so that when they're looking on Airbnb, they are going to book me. Is this making sense? Is all of this making sense? Have y'all sent this to some friends? Okay. So I already talked a little bit. I see a question regarding how did I get started on Airbnb. I already talked a little bit about how did I get started within this space. But for those of you who do not know or who are not familiar, I started out when the Super Bowl came to Atlanta. So that was the year 2019. Yes, if you're by Mobile, Alabama, you have some opportunity there. But I started out Airbnb when I was in my apartment. I had a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom bucket apartment. I was in my apartment, and that is when I started to Airbnb. It was the weekend of Super Bowl, and a ton of my friends in my group were saying how much they were about to get started in Airbnb. They had a house, some of them had an apartment, but everybody was saying, you know what, I'm going to try my hand at listing my space. So then I tried mine as well. I ended up making $2,000 that weekend. My rent was only like $1,200, y'all. It was only like $1,200. So being that my rent was only like $1,200, I made $2,000 in that weekend. I decided, you know what? I need to get into this space, and I need to get into this space fast. So at that point, I then decided I need to purchase a house. For me, I thought that a house would be the best route. So I then went and did all of my research on purchasing a house, and I purchased my first house that October of 2019. So the Super Bowl came to Atlanta February of 2019. I bought my first house October of 2019, and then I started Airbnb in that. Okay, I see a next question. If you are a renter, how would you do Airbnb? Okay, we talked about that at the beginning of the live, so if you missed that, just rewind it back, or just go to the YouTube, and you should be able to rewind it back immediately. But if you are a renter, you are going to go through the route of what's called rental arbitrage. You didn't specify in your question whether or not you are renting an apartment or a house. It's a little bit easier with renting a house to convince the owner. With an apartment, especially if you are someone who likes to go by the book with every single thing, and you're afraid of getting caught, right? You're afraid of any of that, then at that point, it's going to be a little harder in an apartment. However, you do have the option of corporate leasing, or just putting it under your own name and figuring out whether or not that apartment has high security, low security, or what have you. Because if it is an apartment to where it's just open parking, you can walk right up to the apartment door, then it makes it a lot easier for you to actually rent that space on Airbnb and make some money from it too. Actually make some money from it. Another question. Okay, another question I see is, how do I go about applying for an LLC? You all know that I told you that I do think in this space you need to have an LLC set up. And the only reason I say that, you don't need an LLC to get paid with this. You can get earnings with this whether or not you have an LLC. It can go straight to your personal account. Straight to your personal account. Free training. Let me pin this comment. at link in bio. All right. But yes, it can go straight to your account. So when we're looking at whether or not you should create an LLC, I specifically say that because you need capital. A lot of people do not start their businesses. They don't feel like they can succeed in a business. Like they don't do anything because they say, I don't have the capital. How am I going to start? Like I don't have the money. I don't have the access to it. Getting that LLC and structuring your business correctly, and then going on to actually structure and create your business credit or build your business credit is going to give you that capital you need to get started. So that is why I do recommend going the LLC route if you are going to go and you say, I don't have the money right now, or you don't want to spend your money, right? But I will say that you need to understand if you are going to go the LLC route of saying, I want to structure my Airbnb under an LLC and I want to use the capital from my LLC to then fund that, it is going to take a little time because it does take time for you to build your business credit. It takes a little bit of time for you to do that. So when you're looking at actually setting up your LLC, pretty much you just need to go to your Secretary of State's website. So just Google your state plus Secretary of State. So I would do Georgia Secretary of State website, and you should be able to go on there and register a new business. You can do this by yourself. A lot of people ask me this question as well. Should I go LegalZoom? Should I get a lawyer? You can completely, right? You can completely do this by yourself. So go on there. I think it costs, depending on the state, it may cost between $100 and $200. Go on there. And then at that point, you can go and register your business. The only information that you need, for the most part, they're not going to ask you to upload your business plan. They are not going to ask you to upload your articles of organization or anything like that. But they are going to ask you for your LLC name. They're going to ask you for an address associated with it, a contact name, and then they also are going to they're going to ask you for the fee as well. But they're going to ask you for what's called I believe it's pronounced NAICS code. And a NAICS code is NAICS, and it's pretty much a code that categorizes your business. So what type of business do you have? That is all that they are asking. Now, this could be anything. You could say that this is education services. You could say that this is t-shirt. I mean, obviously you want to say what your actual business is. However, that is what you are going to do. So that's really the only thing that you need, and that's where a lot of people get caught up. All you need to do to figure out your NAICS code is Google. Just Google, and they will literally they will give you an entire list of NAICS codes for the different categories that they have. They have a category for vending machines. They have a category for rental leasing, right? So that is going to be where you are. Let me write this. AirbnbMoney. Okay. But yes, so that is what you need to do. But you can certainly do this by yourself. Please, please, please stop having people charge you to do this, charge you to create your LLC, and even furthermore, your EIN. You are not charged for an EIN at all. For those of you that are not familiar, your EIN is what is called your employer identification number. So that is pretty much your business's social security number. That's how the government is going to identify your business. It is completely free for you to go and grab an EIN number. I believe it's almost immediate if you have your LLC set up, but I am not sure since it's been a couple of years since I created mine as well. But you can do all of that yourself. The piece that a lot of people forget about, right? The piece that a lot of people forget about. Actually, I won't even tell you. It's in the free training. Grab the free training. But there is a piece after you actually setting up your LLC and your EIN that you need to do in order to really establish your business credibly, and then even furthermore establish that business credit that is then going to help you to use that capital to start your business and create that. Okay, let's see if there are any more questions. Okay. Someone else has asked, how do I know the good areas to do Airbnb in my state? Figure out where most people are populated. If it is a capital within your city, then go there. If there is some type of large factory, right, within your city to where people may need to stay there, maybe there is a military base in your city, right? You need to just, like, there's different things that you can just look for to figure out where's the best spot in your state to Airbnb. This could be a college town. This could be a college town to where you are Airbnb, and you got to get creative, y'all. But that's what you need to start thinking about in order to really understand that. Someone else, not last week, like a day ago, they asked, should they buy real estate as a group or by themselves? Really, that's just up to you. That's up to your own discretion. Buying it as a group pretty much is going to help you to, I guess, share what it costs, right? To share those startup costs. That's really the main benefit that I've seen, in addition to just having someone who may be more knowledgeable in the space. So maybe you're partnering with a real estate agent. Maybe you're partnering with your friend who's just done this before. But either way, that's really the benefit that I see within a partnership. And that's how I've seen people do it. But you can absolutely do this by yourself or as a group. Just understand, once you start bringing more people in, you got to split the earnings. You got to split the money. And that's really the only piece that's, kind of messed up about it. So someone else asked, what is involved with Airbnb? And again, as you have questions, feel free to drop them using the question button. And yes, that's absolutely crazy. People charge to do your LLC and your EIN. Granted, they have the right to charge. I mean, I get it. If you're someone who you don't want to do it yourself, or you don't want to figure it out, then by all means, they got a service for it. But you don't need to pay someone to do it, right? It does not have to be from a lawyer. It does not have to be from any of that. So, yes. Someone else asked, what's involved in Airbnb in your apartment, paperwork, leasing office, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously they are going to ask for proof of your business, and especially if you are going under the corporate lease route, they're going to ask for your bank statements. They just want to show proof if you do not have a credit score, right? If you don't have a business credit score. In the instance that you have a business credit score, they may not even ask for your bank statements, but for the most part, they're likely going to ask for those bank statements because they need proof that you can pay for the units that you are getting. At that point, you need to make sure that you are at a location that actually accepts Airbnb or accepts corporate housing. There are apartments that do not accept corporate leases at all. So then at that point, you probably have to put it under your personal name, and you become kind of like a personal guarantee for that. And that has a different piece, because if you do this, right, the repercussions of doing Airbnb in an apartment that does not allow Airbnb is the fact that you can get evicted for this. So you can certainly get evicted for it if you are in an apartment that they do not allow Airbnb, and they informed you of that, and that was in your lease, and you signed it, and you still went ahead and did that, then you got caught. That will then come up on your credit score, especially if you are a personal guarantee. So that's really the only piece about it, and it's why a lot of people don't like taking the risk of putting their own name under the units that they are doing through an apartment, or Airbnb through an apartment. So that's typically why they do that. Okay. Okay, so I have someone who's asking for tips on guest communication. So I've mentioned this before on the page, but if you are currently a host, right, because I know there are people within who are watching or within the Airbnb Money community that are already hosts and already hosting their units. If you are already a host, there are 8 points of communication that your guests should have with you in total during their stay, right? This is before and during their stay. Those 8 points of communication, these help you to ensure, number one, that you are getting a positive rating, because that positive rating helps for you to then receive Superhost status, which Superhost status is where you then get to be able to receive a bonus, and you get your listing prioritized in the search listings, and it's a bunch of little extra stuff. But for the most part, Superhost status is something that you want, because there are people who go on Airbnb and they just want the Superhost. So that is what that helps with. So 8 points of communication. Those 8 points are listed out within the ebook. You can grab that at the link in my bio, but I will say this. I can give you the first 3. The first point of communication that you have with your guest is just upon inquiry or booking, right? They've sent you a message and they said, hey, I want to book, or hey, I'm interested. What's going on? That is your first point of communication. Your second point of communication is upon booking. You want to provide them with some information related to your listing. Number one, always provide those house rules. You want to provide your house rules multiple times because people will ignore the house rules. Just think about the times when you've stayed in an Airbnb. You've probably ignored the house rules. And then the third piece is actually 24 hours after their check-in, 24 hours after their check-in. You have the morning of check-in and then at check-in. Those already happen. And then 24 hours after check-in, I don't have the specific page, babe, but you can look at the table of contents. I believe it's on page 3, and it will give you a breakdown of where that is. But yes, and then that fourth piece is just 24 hours after they check in. I like to check in and say, hey, how is your stay going? How can I make things better? So those are the first 4 and where that is. Someone on YouTube has said, Jupiter says, subleasing is what it's called when you lease to someone else or Airbnb an apartment that you are renting. That is true as well. It falls under that term of rental arbitrage too. Okay, perfect. All right, perfect. And I believe another question came through. I don't know what this one is. So someone on Instagram has asked, was your credit score an advantage to getting you a great start to getting into real estate? How important was that? This is an amazing question. Amazing. Credit was so important. Absolutely. That is the reason that I was able to get such a great deal on the house that I got first. So just to give you background, when I was in high school, my mother started to build my credit. She added me as an authorized user on her credit cards when I was in high school. I never got the credit cards. She never gave them to me, right? And for those of your friends that may be struggling with credit or just trying to figure it out, send them this live right now. Send it to 3 people. Send it to 3 people who need some help with credit. So my mother started building my credit when I was in high school. She added me as an authorized user. This does not just have to be your parents. Your friend can add you as an authorized user to their account. I've done it for my friends. If you have a friend that is really good with their credit, they take care of their finances, your friend can add you as an authorized user. So what my mother did was she added me as an authorized user. So by the time that I got ready to purchase my first car and even furthermore purchase my first house, my credit score was nearly 800. And I know that is an advantage, a little bit of privilege that I had with getting started within real estate. But my mother absolutely set me up for success in terms of getting my personal credit in order. Now, business credit, I did not have any business credit when I started in Airbnb. So like I said, you do not necessarily need it. Typically, you only need that business credit, or you would need that business credit if you need some capital to get started. That is what it is. You need capital to get started. Being that I already had a bit of capital to get started, I started saving. I was investing already. I knew that I wanted to get started with that. That's what happened. So my personal credit certainly helped me to get a really good interest rate on my house. And I did not go the FHA route. I know many people typically talk about getting an FHA loan. I did not go the FHA route simply because it was better for me with the rate that I was getting to go and get a conventional loan. And then even furthermore, with FHA, there are different requirements in terms of like income and actually staying in the house that I just didn't want to adhere to. So that's why I went the conventional route. And even furthermore, I wanted to save at least my first FHA loan that I did get for a multi-unit property. I'd rather use it on a multi-unit property because at that point it's worth it because they're giving me a little bit more money back. But yeah, absolutely. Credit was super important, but like I said, you do not need it to get started. You can just use your business's credit, but my personal credit definitely helped me to get started and get my leg into this. Okay, YouTube has asked, do I personally do walkthroughs after a stay? I do not. So what I do when my cleaners finish up, my cleaners send me a video of like them walking through the completely clean home. So my completely clean unit, they send me a video every single time so that I know how that unit looks, and we have documentation of how it looks. That is the really important piece. If you are on my Instagram, you may have saw that carport. You're on the AirbnbMoney Instagram. Someone, a guest, drove into my carport. And that isn't even the craziest thing that's happened, right? But a guest drove into my carport. Had we not had any documentation, had I not had cameras, I would not have been able to recoup those costs. I would not have been able to recoup those costs at all. So at that point, yes, after we do cleanings, they just send me a video because, again, I try to be as hands-off with this as possible so that I can focus on the other strategies that I need to succeed and just make money, honestly. So I'm pretty hands-off. My cleaners handle it all because, like I said, I just want this to be very passive. This has to be passive for me. It has to be passive. At first, it won't be. I will tell y'all that. At first, this will not be passive, but it gets to be passive. Once you put the work in and you build your team up and you have some solid, reliable people, it gets to be passive. Let me know. Let me know if y'all have any questions about tiny houses. If anybody's on here and you have a question about tiny houses, let me know. Drop a comment or something, either on YouTube or on Instagram. Let me know if you want to talk tiny houses. I wanted to do a separate video for that, but if there are people who have questions just getting started, I'm down to do that as well. If you have not already, I know I've been on here about 30 minutes, so I think I might close it out. I don't see any additional questions on Instagram, at least from the ones that a lot of these were asking the same questions, you guys. Okay, I see one. What are some strategies to scale an Airbnb business, especially in different cities? So when you are looking at scaling an Airbnb business, the number one strategy that you need to have in place, right? The strategy of just having a team. That is the strategy. Having people who you can rely on. And more specifically, cleaners. Cleaners are the backbone of an Airbnb business because cleaners are going to affect the reviews, and then they are going to affect whether or not you even have extra time on your hands anyway to have a side business. Because if you don't have them, then you are going to be cleaning your Airbnb units yourself. So that's how that works. And then even furthermore, just strategies to scale it. Build your business credit. Build your business credit and do not go off and just spend the money that you're making from this. Do not just go off and spend the money that you're making from this, right? You want to save that money and continue investing it, continue flipping it, so then you have more capital to start and get that new unit. That's exactly what I did with my first property that I have, and that's how I was able to scale to 3. I used my first house and the earnings from my first house to buy the second house. I used the earnings from that second house and what I was doing to then go on and purchase the tiny house. So use your business as more of like a way where you can loan money from yourself. That's really how you can do it. Okay, there are a ton of questions coming in about the tiny house on YouTube. So we're going to talk about that. Where did I buy the tiny house from? I bought the tiny house from Liberty Storage Solutions. I believe it's Liberty Storage Solutions or Liberty Shed Solutions. That is where I purchased the tiny house from. I believe they are located in North Carolina. It might be South Carolina, but one of the Carolinas. That's where they are located. They were absolutely amazing with their service. They delivered it. It was one guy that delivered the entire tiny house by himself. It was crazy. If you want to see that, you got to watch the Going Tiny docuseries. But it was absolutely crazy. That's where I purchased it from. And you can just Google their name and their website should pop up. The shed version, when I purchased, and based on how what wood was costing and all of that, my shed that I purchased was right around $10,000, including the doors, the sheds, lighting, electric. That is what it came with. And I will be making a YouTube video covering all of that so y'all can see that as well in terms of what tech we have in the tiny house. How does it work for tiny houses? How does what work? Yeah, you'll have to be more specific. Let me know how does what work. But I Airbnb it just the same. So the tiny house that I have is located in the backyard of the first investment property that I have. And it has 2 separate entrances. So the main entrance is for those who are staying in the main house. They get to stay within, they get to park in the driveway. And then even furthermore, we have a side entrance for the tiny house. And they have a little trail that leads them into the backyard. Okay, I plan on purchasing a lot and dropping a shed on it and building out a tiny house to start my Airbnb this year. That's really dope. For those, I know a few people did ask. I did not buy land for the tiny house. Like I said, the tiny house is in the backyard of the first property. I bought a property with a really, really big backyard. I did that on purpose. If you are on the Airbnb Money Instagram, you know why I did that, how I did that. But I bought a house with a really big backyard because I knew I wanted to put a house in the back. I knew I wanted to put something in the back. I didn't know whether or not it was going to be a house, whether it was going to be like one of those little shipping containers that you guys see. I don't know. I wanted something in the back, though, and that is why I did it. Did I use the same builders out of North Carolina for all of my tiny homes? How did I find a reliable contractors? I have one tiny home, guys. Just one. This is my first one that I've just finished in March of 2021, but I do want to do more. I do want to do more. Negotiation strategies when talking to landlords or apartment buildings for creating Airbnb partnerships. Absolutely. I definitely say you should have negotiation strategies going in and use it as a partnership, right? So this is when I say you need to come in framing things in the right way. Some people say like, well, how does a landlord just let you rent their apartment for, X amount of dollars and you're making all of that money off of their space? How do they let you do that? It's not about how do they let me do that. It's about how I framed it. I said that, hey, I can give you an extra $300 a month from what you asking. From what you asking, I can give you an extra, let's say it could be whatever you want, right? You can say extra $100, $200, what have you. I want to give you an extra $200 a month. I will consistently give you that and I'll pay the first 2 months up front. Those are the negotiation tactics that I use. Those are the strategies I use. I'll pay you a little extra and you'll get that consistently, or the first 3 months I'll pay you $200-$300 extra. That is a negotiation strategy that you use, but you have to make it worth it for them. You have to make it worth it for the owner. And the owner may want something off top, or there was, at least about a year and a half ago, right? A year and a half ago, there were a lot of owners who were just looking to find someone to get into the house. And that was really the time to start renting a house, because people were just, the pandemic hit. A lot of people were scrambling. They were looking for someone to consistently give them rent in the house, because you all know that there was the moratorium on rent and everything. Like people could just not pay rent. So that is a negotiation tactic that I use, and I definitely say like you can do it that way, but you don't always have to go in immediately saying I'm going to give you X amount off top. You do not have to do that. I did not have an HOA with a tiny house. And yes, there were permits. And being that it was in the middle of a pandemic, it was absolutely a very long time. Yes, it was a long time, or it felt like a long time to me. But it took a while. It took at least like 2 or 3 months. I did a lot of calling back and forth. I had to call a number of offices because a lot of government employees were now working from home for the first time ever. So it was really hard in regards to the permitting process for the tiny house. Do I own the cleaning business that hires the cleaners? I do. I actually do not. I have a partnership with my cleaner though. So he cleans 2 of the properties that I have, and I have a separate cleaning company for the property that I have that's located a few blocks away, only because included within their cleaning price, they have laundry and everything. And I just don't have a washer and dryer at that unit. I don't want to put one at that unit. So that's just a lot easier for me. What kind of permits do you need, if any, for Airbnb? Right now, none. And number 2, that is going to depend on your city. You need to look up the short-term rental regulations and Airbnb within your city, what regulations they have. I know Airbnb in Atlanta, they are definitely cracking down just a little bit. I wouldn't say cracking down, they're just creating more regulations. So right now there is going to be kind of like a fee to host on Airbnb on an annual basis, and different things like that. But definitely look at your city. I don't know the ordinance for every city. I do not. So you would just have to look at your city in regards to what permits are needed. But for the most part, typically, there's not a lot of permits. I do know that the one city I know definitely has permits is Denver. Denver has a lot of permits. I think they're only allowed one Airbnb unit. They can't even have more than one unit. It's crazy. Would I ever purchase a rental investment as a group? he's interested in getting started within the business and just unsure where to start. I know I want to dive in once I'm completely debt free, which is soon. I feel that, and a lot of people feel the same way, right? You want to dive into the business when you are completely debt free. And I will say that I saw a question come through asking, "Am I debt free?" I am not debt free. I have 2 degrees. I didn't pay for the first one, but I did pay a bit for the second one, and I still have that loan out. I am paying on that loan, and I pay more than the minimum amount every month. But I keep debt because not all debt is bad debt. My credit score is in the high 700s. It hit 800 because I have debt, right? A lot of people ask, it's like, well, did you buy your car in cash? No. If you buy it in cash, how is that creating credit? It doesn't, right? It doesn't. So that's why. So I do have that. I do have that new car that you saw that I have. I did not pay all cash for that. Paying all cash for a car, I just don't think makes sense in my opinion anyway. With the use that I'm going to have for it, it just doesn't make sense. And then even furthermore, like I said, I want to continue building my credit. And I do that through actually having lines of credit open. So I do have that. I have my student loan, which is right about, I believe, at about $15,000 maybe. I have that new car. And that new car, y'all can look that up yourself. I have that new car. And then, of course, I have the house. I do have a mortgage on the house. And I just pay that mortgage as well. And that's considered debt, even though it is an asset to me. I've made it into an asset. So you can make certain debts and liabilities that you have an asset. Like my car could have very well been an asset had I kept my old car and maybe put it on two-row or hire car. Hopefully that makes sense. But okay, perfect. Any other questions about money, debt? Let me see. Yes. So where did I purchase my house furniture / decor? Did I shop on a budget? Absolutely. I absolutely shopped on a budget because this was my first time. And you all understanding, I am 25. So I got money, but I don't be liking to spend my money. So yes, I did absolutely shop on a budget for my first few units that I have. And then I upgraded afterwards. After the units began making me a little bit more money is when I then decided, you know what, I'll update the couch here. I'll add in, a photo wall here. But it wasn't until I actually started making money from the units that I did that. So I purchased most of my items from Facebook Marketplace, IKEA, DD's Discounts, TJ Maxx, Ross, all of your discount department stores. I was up and through those aisles. Absolutely. So that is where I got a lot of the stuff. And like I said, a lot of the larger furniture items I was able to get from Facebook Marketplace as well as liquidation stores. Liquidation stores in your city are a really good place to look in for items for that. So you can absolutely do it on a budget. Okay, I see some stuff coming in on YouTube. Would I ever purchase? Okay, I've answered that. Taxes, am I saving on taxes with my LLC or am I filing as an S/C Corp? This is my first year filing my taxes as my Airbnb business and using it. And I didn't like how it went. So I think I am going to go the S Corp route. I've heard about it before. I recently just hired and brought on a financial planner and an accountant. So I'm getting all of that together, and it's all coming together now. But in regards to filing my taxes, this was my first year doing it. Again, understanding I'm 2+ years into this, so a little over 2 years, and I just started doing that. But taxes are a big piece. The good piece about it with Airbnb though is that until you get to a certain threshold with your earnings, you don't have to claim it. In regards to taxes, I don't recall the threshold right now. I don't, because I believe it has changed. However, I don't know if it's less than 25,000, less than 30,000. But if you're just looking to do this on the side and make that little extra money, there is a threshold before you actually have to claim it for taxes. All right. Would I be willing to host a meetup for decor? Airbnb tips, simply a space for like-minded individuals to network. You're in Beaufort, so you definitely want to attend. Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you are interested in mentorship, if you click the free training in my bio and you sign up for it, you'll be able to send me an email regarding mentorship. So I have a mentoring program for Airbnb coming this week. So if you are interested in being mentored, just send me an email. You can either do that just via how I just mentioned, so going into the training, signing up, and then clicking the link for the mentorship program, or you can just shoot me a DM and I will send you the email where you can send that. But I just want it all. I want to track everything via email. So just shoot me an email if you are interested. The Airbnb Money email and my email should be listed somewhere on my YouTube channel. If not, please just reach out to me on Instagram and I can get it to you. But yeah, if you are interested in the mentoring program, we can make that happen. Let me see if there are any other questions. Okay. I know there's a bit of a lag with YouTube. Okay, perfect. So, yes, so if you are interested with that on YouTube, I'm going to drop the link where you can send an email. And just send me an email and include hashtag Airbnb money in the subject. Yes, of course, yes. And I completely forgot about the chat box, so I'm sorry about that. Absolutely. So I put it in the chat box for those of you that are interested. And since there's going to be a replay, I won't put it in the chat box here. But if you are interested in that, just let me know. Okay, thank you so much. Yes, that's how Boss Maria is one unit and it needs to be a permanent residence. Exactly. It's very crazy, like the restrictions and regulations that some of these cities have on Airbnb. And it's also understanding, like, anytime, I'm going to say this, and it's going to be a little bit, right? But anytime the government sees that there is a lot of money, right, going into a certain industry, there are regulations that are going to be placed on it. Anytime they see that. So the same with Airbnb, right? When Airbnb started really getting, like, popular, which is now, right? That is why Atlanta has so many regulations now, and they have been having board meetings, city council, all types of stuff, because they have seen the opportunity within this industry. So they are placing regulations on that, and the same goes for the cannabis industry. The cannabis industry is the same way. They're realizing that there's a lot of money in it, especially with the regulations. So that's where we are. I see a couple of questions coming in on YouTube. Can I turn my garage into an Airbnb? Absolutely. You can put anything on Airbnb, and what I like about it is that they have what's called unique spaces. So they make it really cool in an aspect of, hey, you're staying in the garage, but it's a unique space. If you really make it into a really cool, livable space, you can absolutely do that. You can Airbnb a garage. I am located in Atlanta. I am not located in North Carolina. Do I pay property insurance? Absolutely. And I pay property taxes, and they were a lot, and they went up this year by a lot. Am I still doing the Build a Successful LinkedIn class? Right now, I am not. You can sign up for the wait list, though. We are starting that back up within Q3. So I'll be starting back up everything related to LinkedIn and branding within Q3. So that is September. Yes. October? Yeah. Whichever that is when I'm starting it up. So, okay, perfect. Are there any last questions? Let me know any last questions. I know we've been on here about an hour, so I'll let y'all go. Thank y'all for spending y'all Sunday night with me. Was this helpful? If you have not already, make sure you sign up for the free training at the link in my bio. What I'll do now is drop the training link in the chat on YouTube. And I think I've already typed it out, actually. Perfect. I'll pin this one. Okay. So I've pinned that comment. And yes, I will be saving this. Absolutely, it'll be saved. It'll be located on the Airbnb Money Instagram. So if you want to if you want to rewatch, you need to catch the replay because you missed a little bit of the beginning. It'll be on the Airbnb Money Instagram. So yes, if you have not already, make sure you sign up for the free training. It is completely free. Like there's no like side anything about it. You just have to sign up with your name, your first name, and your email. And then at that point, you will get access to all 5 videos that are included within that training. And then at that point, you will then get access. You will get access to requests to be in the mentorship program. So that is how you can get directly to that link if you want it. But it's 5 videos. We are going over 3 guided steps that you need to take before you hop into the real estate business, the short-term rental industry. So make sure that you do that because within there, we talk about credit. We talk a little bit about credit. We talk about cash. We talk about building your mentors and building your group of people within this space as well. So that is what we are doing. Thank y'all so much. And to answer that last question, Danielle, I just saw it come through. You do not have to have a official LLC to get started, but go back and rewind this video and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about and how you need to structure that. But okay, well, thank y'all so much for being on. I'm going to hop off now. Y'all have a good night. Okay. Thank you so much.